It's time to treat for Varroa mites. Well, when isn't it time to treat for Varroa mites? Because it's a scourge. It's the best way to put it. There's no way to get around. Sooner or later, you're going to have to treat for Varroa mites. I know there's some non-treaters out there, and some are successful, a lot are not. I tend to fall on the side of treating because I think it just makes for healthier bees. We're in the fall right now, late summer, early fall. Huge time to treat for Varroa mites because it's at this time of year that Varroa mites start to really ramp up their numbers inside the hive. So you want to be able to knock those mite numbers down so that your winter bees that are born throughout the month of latter part of August, September, and going into October, those are the bees that you want to be absolutely healthy. And Varroa can basically destroy their health and ruin your hive. Let's talk about several of the different ways that you can treat for Varroa with oxalic acid. Before we go any further, two things. Thank you for watching, appreciate it. And if you would, hit that subscribe button because that's really helping us to keep producing the videos and making things hopefully easier or more understandable for you. So thank you. So hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and just again, we appreciate it. And then the second thing I'm going to follow up with, oxalic acid is dangerous. And you're going to hear me say that several times through this video. Oxalic acid is dangerous. Be careful with it. Oxalic acid is a naturally forming natural product. It is in a lot of food. It's in honey to a very, very small amount. There's a lot of it in spinach. And some people say if you eat a lot of spinach, you kind of get like a tingle inside your mouth, and they feel like that could be from the oxalic acid. So oxalic acid is a natural chemical, and it is very effective killing Varroa mites. So that's why we've been using it. There's several different ways to use it. I'm going to talk about two of them today. One of them is very popular, and that is doing oxalic acid vaporization. I've got a couple ways I'm going to show you how that can happen. And then another way is through an oxalic acid dribble. And that's also a really effective way to counteract Varroa mites, or to try to rid your hive as much as possible of Varroa mites. I use both methods. I like both methods. Once I get into the chill of winter though, I feel like I don't want to open up the hives as much. I probably could and use a dribble, but instead I use vaporization because I can get through all my hives in just really under an hour, and most of that hour is driving from one hive to the other and putting on my protective gear. The first thing I want to do is talk about the type of oxalic acid that is used. I bought 99.9% pure oxalic acid for a few dollars on Amazon. This is a lifetime supply. And it's not 100% because somewhere in here there's probably a small hair or something. That's why it's 99.9. But this, which is 99.8%, I guess it's got 2 hairs in it. Actually bought this from my local bee store. I'll give a shout out to InstaVap Beekeeping Supply out in Fenton, Missouri on Gravois Road. Great people, great prices, very knowledgeable, very friendly. If you're in the St. Louis area, you know about InstaVap. If you don't know about InstaVap, get out there and buy some stuff. I'm telling you, they're great people. Anyway, but I'm just about out of this, and that's why I bought that. I needed this, and InstaVap is about 45 minutes from me. So that's the type of oxalic acid you use. It's readily available. Just get it as pure as you possibly can, and 99.9 or 99.8 is about as much as you're gonna get. It's a fine powder, and it can hurt you. Have I said that before? I guess I'm gonna keep saying it. It can hurt you. So what are some of the tools you can use? You can't use a screwdriver. I don't know how that ended up here. Probably screwing around. Okay, sorry. I'm a dad. What can I say? But one very common way is through a heated wand if you're going to vaporize the acid. And this works fairly simply. You've got this tray at the end that gets very, very hot. And once it gets above, actually I think it's 315 degrees Fahrenheit is the point at which oxalic acid starts to vaporize. It gets hotter than that. When this is cold, below 315 degrees, so it's not vaporizing outside of the hive, you put your oxalic acid in here. How much? A lot of it depends on your hive. I use, on single deeps, I use somewhere a tad over a gram, maybe a gram and a quarter, gram and a half, to account for the amount that leaks out from certain areas in it. That works pretty good. I think there's been some studies, and you can really, truly read about everything you'd ever want to hear about it from Randy Oliver in Scientific Beekeeping, and it's just, we'll show you all the bars and graphs and everything you can use. I could probably go up to 2 grams and still be fine and not really show any impact on the bees. And I've even read some things where it's like, no, I pushed it much higher. Anyway, about a gram to a gram and a half is what I use in a single deep. A double deep, I tend to use closer to 2. But I'm getting so few double deeps anymore that I guess I'm just going to be constantly using about a gram and a half. But if I find a hive that has a much higher mite count than I want it to have, I might up that just a little bit to give them a little bit more oxalic acid vapor. So how does this work? Once it's cool, you take your oxalic acid in a little spoon that will give you the amount that you need, and you put it in here. Then you go to the other business end of this, and these connect to a battery. What I've used before that worked pretty well, especially if it's in the winter and there's just very little activity going on with the bees, I would bring my tractor out and just hook it up to the battery on the tractor while the tractor is running. Early on, when I was only treating, I think 3 or 4 hives out at the apiary for the garden club, we had a little tiny battery that usually got us through the either 3 or 4 hives that we had. So, you need a battery source. I would say, depending upon the number of hives that you've got, is the power size that you need for the battery. But it will suck down battery juice pretty darn quick. This is brand new. I'm not going to show you how it works. I'm actually putting this into a swap meet, and this is kind of like my donation to it. So I'm not going to show you how this works in action, but I can show you real quick how it goes into a hive. Poof, there's my hive. If you have a front end reducer on and you're using the wider opening, obviously it won't work if you're in the winter and you've got a small opening, but if you've got the wider opening on it, or if you watched my video on how to custom build your 3D entrance reducer and use that, selfless plug. This you may recognize from my beetle defense video. If you need to defend against hive beetles and not Varroa mites, please watch that video. Another selfless plug on my part, but hey. So you're going to put the oxalic acid in here, and you are going to take your wand and basically you put it in. Because you have this closure here, it helps keep the fumes in, and then you hook up your battery. Then you give it the amount of time that you need. How much time is that? Well, before you do this part, do a practice run and fill it up with what you need, plug in your battery, and time how long it takes from the time you plug your battery in until the last bit of oxalic acid is gone. That's how you know when it's time to take the wand out. Then when that time is up, you pull out the wand and you go on to the next hive. So it's a pretty simple process, but there's a couple of things that I think you need to be careful of. There are some reports that the wands caught hives on fire. The possibility of that is there, especially if you had a lot of burr comb underneath the hive. This gets hot. It is possible that you could hit a big pile or stick this into the middle of burr comb and it would be enough to ignite the burr comb. Probably not, but it's a possibility. So that's one thing you need to be careful of. Just take a peek in or make sure that you don't have it. Or shoving this up into the bottom frames. Now, I'm doing that and I'm not feeling the bottom frames of this. So you've got a lot of latitude there, and especially if you got this brace on here that helps kind of prevent you from doing that. But those are just things to be cautious of when you're using these. This is a great option if you've only got a few hives. It's a way to go, and it's not real expensive. I don't know, I could look it up, but I know it was under $50. It's probably under $30, and probably was even less than that. I'll put a link to this down below on Amazon. If it's something that you're thinking is good, go ahead and buy it. So that's how we operate the wand. let's talk about another way. And this is probably not for everybody, but it could be, and it may be for you one day. So let's talk about the InstaVap from Laura Bees. I am not sponsored by them. I'm not receiving any compensation whatsoever for it. But I am here to say I bought this, and for me it was a game changer. If you ever get to the point where it makes sense to have one of these, that you seriously consider going this route. It made my life so much easier when I was doing 20 to 25 hives and doing 5 treatments 5 days apart for 5 weeks. It just was really worth the time and the money for me. So let's talk about the InstaVap. There's a couple different models. There are some that plug in the same way that the wand did and a lot less expensive. But then, you know, I'm out in a remote field on my major hives out at the farm. So using a battery operated InstaVap is a great way to go. I'm not going to go far into how that's operated. There's tons out there. In fact, I would go out and probably look at Larabi's website. They have lots of videos showing you exactly how to use this. But the simplest way to show you is that this plunger, and on the side right here, has little marks on it. And those marks are from 1 to 4 grams of oxalic acid, and you basically just twist the top to get you what you need out of it. Take your plunger, plug it in, and you've got your oxalic acid. I'll show that to you when we're out in the field and how this operates. You put that in, take my little demo hive and turn it around here so you can see the way I use it, because it's just easier for me, is I then have a 1/4 inch hole I've drilled into the back of the hive, and you stick it in, you hit the plunger, and whew. And I think it's, I don't know, we're gonna see it when we're out in the field. It's only a few seconds really, and it's done its thing. So then I pull it back out. I've got golf tees, I'm gonna show you how I do that. And I'm on to the next hive. Bada boom, bada bing, I'm done. Now, it's also possible very much to just take this, because it also is designed to fit into the front of the hive, and it has little prongs on the bottom that will hold your InstaVap in place when you're out in the field. So it's whichever way you want to go. Again, we're going to talk about that a little bit more when they're out in the field. I'd say if you start running probably 10 or more hives, it might be worth the investment. They're not cheap. You can go out and look at it. I can put a link to Larabi's webpage out there. Like I said, they're not cheap, but they are very, very effective. Okay, so that's the 2 vape ways that I have to show you. And before we go any further though, we need to talk about safety once again. Am I driving that home enough? Several things that you must have if you're gonna vaporize oxalic acid. You must have a good respirator, and you have to use it, okay? It's great to have it, but if you're not gonna use it, then why have it? Next, you need a good pair of eye goggles. They just help protect any of that from kind of getting into your eye. It can be a real irritant if you get it into your eyes. If you wear contact lenses, take your contact lenses out and use regular glasses. Contacts are like sponges. The last thing you really want to do is get a lot of oxalic acid into your contacts, because it's going to stay there and be a constant irritant. So I would highly suggest, if you have contacts, that you pull those out and just use your regular glasses, and then maybe put safety goggles over the top of those, or just your glasses probably would be enough. Then gloves. I use the gloves you always see me wearing. They're nimble, but they're going to protect your hand from the acid. So I highly suggest using probably these exam type gloves, just because you're going to need some dexterity, but you don't really want to be messing with the oxalic acid and getting it on your hands, or the vapor on your hands and maybe touching your face, your eyes or something. Critically important that you're using the proper safety techniques, because, have I said it's dangerous? It's dangerous. Be careful, just be careful. Now let's talk about dribble. No, not what I usually do with my breakfast on me in the morning. That's about oxalic acid dribble. So let's go through that. So an OA dribble is really a pretty good way to go. It's effective. There's lots of information out there about how and the what. Again, I think you could go through Randy Oliver's pages on scientific beekeeping and learn an awful lot about OA dribble. Basically, you take a plunger and an oxalic acid mixture. The most common has always been sugar water, 1-to-1 sugar water and oxalic acid. I'm going to go through the formula here in just a second. You take 50 milliliters. You've got to buy these syringes, but they were cheap. Again, I'll put a link down in the notes, but they were really inexpensive. You basically use these. I'm going to show you how here in just a second. If you haven't used them, you can use them to shoot at each other. It's kind of fun. Okay, back to reality here. You're taking 50 milliliters maximum per hive, and you put 5 milliliters between each frame. No more, okay? 5 milliliters between each frame and 50 maximum per hive. It is tough. You need to figure out how to get that touch and do that, and to be able to pull all the way down a frame. So you have to practice. You really have to practice. I just practiced with empty frames that had, these have foundation in them. I've got some that are just plain empty, and it wasn't going to hurt anything, and it hadn't been used. Just filling up with water and practicing and practicing and practicing until I got it down where I felt comfortable on doing that. What's the magic formula? You take 600 milliliters of warm water, and you take 35 grams of oxalic acid. Put it into the warm water and you stir it. Once it's incorporated, which is a pretty quick process, then you incorporate the 600 grams of sugar. Watch my video on sugar, on feeding, and you'll know what kind of sugar to use. Just use cane sugar or beet sugar, doesn't matter. And that is your solution. So that solution, that 600 milliliters and the 600 grams of sugar is going to give you plenty unless you've got a lot of hives. Do the math. Basically, that's going to get you 12 hives. So if you've got more than 12 hives, well, then just double the number. If you got less than 12 hives, you should have more than enough. So let's show you how that happens. When you've got your 50 milliliters in, I'm just going to start in the middle because it's easier for you to see. I need 5 seconds to get down a frame. So 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. And at that same time, I practiced so that I know how to start at 50 milliliters on here and push down the frames and go 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. And I end up at 45 milliliters. So that's the critical part. Then you go to the next frame. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. And you're at the 40. Okay, so you just have to keep doing that. Practice first, and then go out to your hives and make that happen. Now, as I said, I don't tend to do that in the dead of winter because it's cold. You could get enough warm days you're doing that, but I have my hives pretty well tightened down, and did a video early this year talking about some of the way I'd winterize hives. I'm going to do a very extensive video showing you how I do what I call my modified condensing hives, how I insulate, how I wrap. Because I have everything as tightly wrapped as it possibly can be, that's why doing the OA vapor for me is easier in the winter when I do the last couple hits, usually right around Christmas and then usually again mid-January. There is an opportunity if I wanted to, because I put candy boards on. We're going to talk about that in another video. Usually right around the 1st of January, and you've got the hives open, you could do an OA dribble at that time. Now that we talked a little bit about the different types of vaporizers you can use, and I told you I use my InstaVap from Lorabi's. I'm not going to review any of this stuff. I just want to show you how it works. I've got some hives out here that actually need to be prepped for that. And I know this is the part that people are going to go, oh, I can't believe you just did that. But I'm going to. I'm taking my handy DeWalt drill, and I actually put 1/4-inch small holes in the bottom of my deep box. I can take my nozzle and basically put it into the hive, hit my plunger, and I'm at the back of the hive, and I don't have to worry about the bees rushing out if I'm doing the front of the hive. It's just, for me, it's a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. I think it's easier on the bees. I put a towel across the front while I push this in just to keep more of the oxalic acid inside the hive, and I move on to the next hive and move on down the line. So I'm going to show you, basically I'm going to even show you how I put the hole in the hive in case you've got one of these or you buy one of these and want to do that. It's a pretty simple process, but I do take a little bit of care, and I do plug up the hole, and I'll show you how I do that as well. But before we get started, I'm going to talk about safety. Oxalic acid is dangerous. It will coat the inside of your lungs and give you issues that you don't want. It can get into your eyes and create havoc. So you need to use protection. Number one, I've got a good pair of safety glasses. I probably should be using goggles, but at least the safety glasses protects most of it. But here is the number one key thing that you need to have if you're going to use oxalic acid in a vaporization. You have to have a no-shi, at least 6001 respirator. And it doesn't do any good to own it if you don't wear it every time you use it. Am I lecturing? I am, because it's like we're beekeepers and we sometimes do stupid stuff. Don't risk your health with us. They're easy to put on. You simply strap it on, and you strap it behind you, and you put your veil over the top. Now I use sorry, you couldn't hear that. I use not a portable veil, but just a non-zipping veil. For me, it's easier to get on and off when I've got the respirator on. It works well under zip veils as well, because I use it with my other suit as well. Make the investment in your life and buy one of these, and buy a good one, and buy extra filters and change them out regularly. I think I've made my point. I think I made my point. So there's really nothing complex about this process. You just got to remember that the bottom of your frames come to about right here. So I try to drill a little bit below that. And as much as it seems like it would bother the bees, it doesn't. It may bother these guys next to them a little bit more, but there's nothing to it. You just simply put your drill in and away you go. Then to close off the hole, you figure out which pocket you put them in. And you take your handy little golf tee, and in it goes. There's not that much to it. So you can see, I've done it on these hives. That's from last year. It doesn't seem to have affected anything. So we'll do it again over here. Okay, and I only have 3 hives to do this out here. But again, in you go. Wipe off. Golf tee in. And uno mas. And that's the way you do it. Nothing to it. So all in all, this is a really pretty simple process. I'm simply going to pull the plug out here. I'm going to put this towel on the front, and I'm going to put my InstaVap. I'm going to put it in the back, hit the plunger, and away it goes. But before I do any of that, what did I complain about earlier that beekeepers often don't do? It's like, oh, well, I'll be okay without my respirator. No, I won't. We're going to stop this now. I'm going to go put a respirator on. So I realize I sound a little bit muffled, but let me show you how this works pretty easily. Take the plunger out, take my OA. I'm going to first just lay the cover over the front to keep a little bit more of the vapor in. It's only a second, girls, so don't get upset. You are. Okay, so then take out our golf tee. It's a fresh drilled hole, so I'll take a second. Okay, and then it's just a matter of put it in, push it down, hit the plunger, and stand back and let it happen. You see it started to come out a little bit at the bottom there. It only takes about 10 or 15 seconds. I'm only using 1.5 grams. And that's all I need. As you see, the temperature is at 444. As I said, inside the house, you get it up to 445. Now we're ready for the next hive. We're going to put the plug back in. Cover that just a little bit.
sure it doesn't fall. OA goes in, does what it needs to. Plug out. InstaVap in, OA in, hit the plunger. Now, because I got this west bottom tray in, you're seeing a little more come out the bottom, but not a lot. It punches, rises on the inside. And done. It's that simple. We're good, we're good. So there you have it. There's not a lot to it when you have it this way. Now, imagine me going down like at the farm where I've got 9 to sometimes 15 hives lined up. It's sure a lot easier to run down the line and do this than doing the wand. So, you know, it depends on what you got. No, I know these aren't cheap, but you know what? For me, time is money, and this makes it really worth it. But anyways, that's how I treat. I treat every 4 to 5 days for about 4 to 5 treatments, and I keep checking mite counts, especially drops on trays, to give me an idea of where things are at. So, there you have it. I gotta get this respirator off. It's killing me. Oh, not having it on would be killing me.
That's the 3 main ways I use oxalic acid. It's been effective for me. My mite counts have always been able to be kept at, not at, but below threshold. And, you know, and my bees have been healthy. Last year I was 100% bees getting through the winter. And I owe a lot of that to just doing the proper mite treatments. And you know, I started out with Apigard. It's a previous video I released a couple weeks ago. And I think Apigard helps knock it down to a point that keeps things in good condition until I start doing another OA treatment on these guys sometime around the 1st of October. And I again, come back again and do it in November, late November, and again I can do it in late December. And so far so good. So that's where we're at with that. You know, again, thanks. Please subscribe. Appreciate it. If you've got comments, more than happy to talk about them down in the comment section. And just happy beekeeping. Did I say this stuff is dangerous? Be careful with it. See ya.